So this male powerlifter entered the women's event and broke all the records. Let's talk about it.
So before we really jump into this, let me just say that I'm very excited about this. I'm so happy that this happened. So happy that this happened. As soon as I heard about this, that this law came into place, I heard it from Coach Greg Doucette. I was like, Coach Greg needs to go do it. He needs to go enter the powerlifting because it is ridiculous. Just to prove a point. And so I am, for one, am super happy that this happened. So let's see. I haven't heard much news about it, just the headlines. So let's check it out.
So this is Avi Silverberg. Now, he is the head coach for Team Canada's powerlifting team, and he's been in that position for about 10 years. Now, this is the Canadian Powerlifting Union and their trans inclusion policy. So without reading the entire policy, it essentially says that an athlete gets to tell the organizers what their gender identity is, and the organizers have to allow them to participate in the events with the gender that they identify with. So
they just have to give into their delusion, basically, is what that means. Yep.
If you're a biological male and you say, I identify as a woman, then they must allow you to compete with the women in that event. The policy also makes it clear that, quote, individuals are not required to disclose their trans identity or history to the CPU or to any of the CPU's representatives.
Why would you need to? Why would you need to?
So, in a nutshell, the Canadian Powerlifting Union is just going to take your word for it. If you want to compete with the women and you're a biological male, you just tell them, I identify as a woman, and they'll let you compete. So this policy allowed trans women to compete with women in powerlifting. Now, this is Annie Andrews. She was the record holder in women's powerlifting in Canada. The record for a bench press that she held was 275 pounds. Now, Annie Andrews won 8 out of 9 competitions she entered in the women's category over.
Like, that's the world record. I bench 250, bro.
The past 4 years. So now enter Avi Silverberg. He goes to the women's competition and he says, well, hey, even though I look like this, I identify as a woman. And he is allowed to compete in the women's competition. He then goes on to shatter Annie Andrews' record of 275 pounds on the bench press by bench pressing nearly 370 pounds, making...
That's not even that... I mean, like, it's impressive, but it's not that impressive.
Him the current women's record holder by nearly 100 pounds. Now, here's the video of him going and breaking the women's bench.
And no real woman will ever be able to smash that, ever.
Bench pressing record in Canada with a lift of 370
Not the
pounds.
world record, the Canadian
Check it
record. I'm like, what are all these people thinking? All the people standing around here, like, what are they thinking right now? What are they thinking? I want to know. Are they thinking like, oh yeah, this looks great. This is totally fair. This is exactly, there's a woman right there laying on the bench. No problem. No problems here. Easy money right there. Easy money. Record over. And
yeah, he pumped that like it was not even a problem. So after he casually bench pressed at 370, breaking the record by nearly 100 pounds, then the people got really...
That's probably not even his PR. Like, facts. It's probably not. He could probably do way more than that.
Really upset at Avi. They said that he was making a mockery of the sport.
Not the sport.
To even throw more salt in the wound, the former record holder was right there and had a front row seat to watch him do it. To watch a record go down in flames.
It's sad.
Now, Andreas felt that this was so wrong that they allowed a man to break her record. Yeah. She actually posted a lengthy video about it, calling him a coward and a bigot because he did this with malicious intent as a biological man competing in the woman's category. You heard exactly right. Matter of fact, listen to it yourself.
I don't think it's malicious. I think he's letting him know, hey, this is absolutely stupid.
Just a super quick update. yes, somebody did show up at the meet today with malicious intent. And you know what? It was nothing. It was just entirely ignored. People lifted. I volunteered. Everyone was happy that I was there. And it really struck me that maybe my participation isn't necessarily fair. I mean, there's science, whatever. But people welcome me because I'm actually nice to people. I show up and I try to make everyone happy. And I think that matters a hell of a lot more than people give it credit for. People want me there because I'm actually nice to people.
Honestly, I don't know what the heck she's even talking about being nice to people for. But I don't think that he was going there to, be mean to her, be malicious to her. Literally just proving a point. Like, why did you guys allow this? Make it stop.
Just a little thought. I'm all good, and the CPU will continue, and be nice to each other. Lift heavy circles.
APU, with the situation with that one lifter claiming to be trans just to get those medals and setting records and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. You shouldn't really be asking me, because I ultimately, weird thing to say, I come from a place of privilege, which, like I said, is weird to say. You gotta keep in mind, I transitioned almost 20 years ago. I got all of my papers done. I have my passport. I got surgery. I can prove without any doubt whatsoever that I have gone through every step.
Now, Andreas goes on to say...
Okay, so I didn't know this. She's a man also. Got it.
that I actually care about women in sport because I am a woman in sport. Now, it's time for us to keep it 100. There's a reason why we have men's sports and women's sports. We understand that there are biological differences between the genders that would make it unfair for us to just have one sport for one gender, right?
Obviously.
We don't have women's soccer and men's soccer and they compete in the same league for the one World Cup, right? There's a women's World Cup and a men's World Cup. Now, I do understand. You have people...
Actually, in most sports, they don't even have restrictions in the men's that women can't come in. They just can't compete. Like, it's just... They can't compete at that level. It's just facts.
Who transition from male to female or from female to male, and they still want to compete in sports. I understand that, and I do feel sorry for those who want to. But how do you fix the problem of the reality of biological differences? Men are faster, stronger, and it's not because of any bias, it's because of biology. Testosterone makes the difference. Now, I do understand that this woman wants to compete with other women, but is that really fair to all those other women who are competing, who didn't have the benefit of going through puberty as a male, having that higher bone density, having all of those advantages as a male? And I think it's interesting because even this trans athlete admits that it's unfair. Listen to her again. Listen to her. She's going to admit that her competing against biological women is unfair. Listen to it.
Everyone was happy that I was there. And it really struck me that maybe my participation isn't necessarily fair. I mean, there's science, whatever. But people welcome me because I'm actually nice to people.
Now, just to be clear, she is admitting that she has an unfair advantage based on biology. That's what she's saying. And that unfair advantage allows her to have all the records in women's powerlifting. And she's essentially saying she should get a pass because she's nice and people like her. But what about the competition? What about all those other women who don't have that biological advantage?
If you're nice,
should they just be forgotten? It's fascinating because, again, I do understand and I do have sympathy for this athlete. But how do you fix the problem? That's the real question here. Now, the Independent Council on Women's Sports, which is a network of women's athletes and supporters advocating for female protected categories in sports. In other words, they're saying biological women should only compete against biological women. Facts. They praised the move. They wrote,
no matter when you decided to transition, because you're still a man. You're still a man. It doesn't matter, bro. It doesn't matter.
This former record holder and trans-identified male Annie Andrews had a front row view of Silverberg mocking the discriminatory CPU policy by also unofficially breaking the women's world record in the event. So I throw the question to you.
I don't know why they're getting mad at him. Like, he's just following the rules. Aren't they being discriminatory to him? Her? Him, her?
What do you think about this whole thing? Do you think he should have done this to show how this policy is ridiculous? 100%. That anybody could just come and say, hey, I'm a woman.
I wish somebody would have done it earlier.
Then go break the women's world record in an event? You know, what's the answer? Should they not be able to compete in any particular event? Or is there some way to make it fair? Let me know in the comment section, because this is not going away. This is only going to get
probably a separate league.
My name is Nate the Lawyer. Be kind to each other, and I will see you next time.
Probably a separate league.
Peace.
That's what I would say. I don't really have the answer. I'm probably not smart enough for that, but I would just say like a separate league, like a trans league. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a trans man or a trans woman. You're just trans, and you can all compete together. They can all compete together, and that way it's separate, and there's no, like, you know, discrepancy versus like when you decided to start taking or stop taking hormones or whatever. So I hope you liked that video. Interesting. I'm glad that it happened. Thank goodness. We have needed that for a while.